Welcome to this episode of Art of War Plus One. Today we're doing a deck tech of our Viserai build. So we think this is a really powerful competitive deck with a lot of advantages coming into the new meta. So take it away, Liam.
So this deck's looking to attack certain spots of the meta by being a versatile deck. So it's definitely geared towards going aggressive, so you can race the big villain of the meta, Starvo.
Yeah.
And then you also have good game versus other popular decks such as Dash, Prism, and the Mirror should be reasonably favourable if you're trying to race someone trying to OTK you.
I don't think the some of the slower control decks are too bad either, so long as your opponent isn't playing perfectly.
And you always have the option to go OTK instead of racing. So we're going to start. We'll talk about the two modes of the deck and what's involved in playing them later.
I guess just quickly first. So this is a Viserai Deck Tech, obviously.
Yes.
The Runeblade class is a little bit contested. So
Yep.
why Viserai?
All three Runeblades are very strong at the moment. I like Viserai at the moment for his versatility.
Yeah.
And the way you can build the deck to beat pretty much anything at the moment, as opposed to playing Briar, where you can tune it more, but it's still going to do the same thing. You're still going to be looking to put your channel mana rocks into play and attack with a bunch of 4 attacks.
And a similar method for Chain, where you play aggressive, you do have an anti-control strategy, but you're still kind of in that boat.
Yeah, still playing the same deck. Whereas Viserai gives you a lot more flexibility in how you attack those matchups.
Yeah.
So we're planning on anything that doesn't pressure us much. You set up lots of rune chunks, you OTK them, or you put them really low, and then you just have a good mid-range deck when they're on 5 to 10 HP.
So yeah, I'd say first up, the benefits of playing a deck like this are different ways to attack a game. So you can play OTK or mid-range setup, or you can play hardline aggro. There's lots of room for player expression, and it's also a powerful deck. It's a powerful deck. Yeah. The cons, and the reasons why you might not play this deck, straight up is the cost.
It's an expensive deck, especially with the cards like Swarming Gloomveil climbing up in price with the popularity of all the Runeblades and everyone wanting to play it.
And a lot of the legendaries are very important for this deck. The deck does not really function without, especially without Bloodchief Skeleton, and Spellbound Creepers is super necessary for a lot of your game plans.
Yeah.
Skullcap is also super important with Starvo being part of the meta, just having 2 extra block, just being able to equipment block out a Winter's Wail is pretty huge.
Yep, and Grasp, making you multiple rune chunks over the course of the game.
Yeah.
While having 3 block on it is
Grasp and Viserai-Thon is a combo. The Vexing Cool Hand, however, is not as much of a must.
Yeah, it's strictly better than Arcane Barrier 1. Yeah. So in your Kano matchups, it might be tempting to break it, which is probably a downside.
Yeah.
And it's just better than having another gloves. It gives you more options.
And the final downside that I came up with while I was thinking about this was it's going to be hard to play.
Yes, it's a very skill-intensive deck. You have a lot of lines available to you, which means you have a lot of opportunity to make the wrong play.
Yeah.
There's lots of ways to play cards, lots of skill-testing cards such as Rattlebones and Sonata. You need to know how these cards function and how to play them in your deck.
So this is a deck that I definitely think can grow alongside you as a player, but also if you're brand new and not super comfortable with competitive formats, I'd probably look at recommending Chain or Briar first.
If you want to pick up that Runeblade class.
Yeah.
So that being said, I think we'll start with the equipment.
Yep.
So we're playing one weapon here in the Viserai-Thon.
Why is it overpowered?
Because it costs 1 resource and attacks for 2 and 2, which is split damage, so you can't be blocked by 1 card such as the Snake Below.
Yeah.
Which means if someone wants to block it, they're leaking 2 damage with 1 card blocks. Or they're taking 4 damage if they not block it, which is a very good rate for 1 resource.
Yeah, I mean, we thought back in the day that Club was good at 2 for 4, and this is 1 for 4 with a better split rate.
Yeah.
So it does walk into equipment slightly worse, I think, but yeah, it's pretty powerful.
And then we've got default equipment of Skullcap, Skeletor, Creepers, and Grasp, which gives you a massive suite of armor. You have 10 armor block there, probably 9 because you're not going to use the Skeletor second charge to block.
Yeah.
But effectively starting on 50 HP there gives you a massive advantage over some of these classes like Katsu, where you only get 4 armor maximum.
Yeah. That's one of the reasons why Runeblade aggro is so powerful, is that you also have that armor to deal with the
Yeah.
harder hitting Guardian classes.
And actually, back in around the first Nationals, about late 2020, we were looking at a Rimblade aggro deck just because you got access to 9 armor with the Snapdragon Scalers, so you didn't have the Spellbound Creeps, but you had the other 3.
Yep.
And that was a big draw to that deck,
Yep.
and it continues to show why it's so powerful.
Yep.
Specifically for the equipment, Skullcap. It's going to be blocking. Use it while it's good, so before you put your opponent lower,
Yep.
you want to be making use of that 3 block throughout the
Yeah.
game.
And thank the God Skullcap is more affordable than it was.
Yeah. And you've got Skeletor, which is the most powerful equipment in your deck.
Mhm.
You get to block 2, and you get to break it to significantly reduce the cost of whatever you play next. And whether that's a Ninth Blade, or a big Sonata turn, or even something small like a Rattle Bones into another attack, or a Dread
we'll be revisiting this card throughout the
but there are
video.
a lot of combos, and it's probably the most important card to know how to use,
Yeah.
because it will swing tempo off a
Yeah.
single activation.
Yep.
And you've got Spellbound Creepers, which has a lot of nuance to how you use it. So this is another reason the deck's so skill testing, is knowing when you can play stuff and what you can play. So you can generate action points at instant speed by playing a non-attack with Go Again, which is a big part of how you combo with Sonata.
Yeah.
And there are other small tricks, such as playing an on-hit effect when you know your attack's going to hit.
Yeah.
And it will trigger
It's
in
big
the
with,
middle of the combat chain. You use it as an attack reaction, effectively.
Yeah. So it's pretty big with swimming Gloomveil and creating, or is it instant speed?
Yep. Or More Advanced Guy is anything.
Morven Skies is the next attack action card. So not quite.
Yeah.
But it's still good.
Yeah, still very good.
Um,
And then you've got Grasp of the Arknight, which is a 3-block equipment on gloves, which is not a lot of classes get. And then you've got the ability of paying 2 to make a rune chant, or more resource potentially, depending on how many rune chants you have.
I believe they're the only 2 battle-worn gloves in the game. Guardian's got temper on their gloves.
That's true.
But yeah, super impactful effect.
Very, very strong. You'll find you make quite a few rune chants over the course of the game. You play a decent amount of blues on the list, so often you have that 2 resource floating.
Yep.
And it means if you have triggered your Rosetta and you're attacking with it, you can come in for 2, 2, and 1 instead.
It saves a lot of your off turns as well, where you can keep a blue and a red, and you can go 1 and 4, especially with Consuming Volition.
Yeah, which is an awful card to block. Next up we have our 3 Arcane Barrier pieces, because we are respecting Wizard in this meta. Daniel disagrees, but Aether Wildfire is a real card and will push a lot of damage.
Well, yeah. The 3 Arcane Barriers seemed pretty necessary when I played a Wizard the other day, so...
You didn't believe me beforehand.
No.
I've converted you, I think.
Put the fear of Kano back in me.
Yeah. So you've got Crown of Dichotomy, which is strictly better Null Rune Hood, Null Rune Boots, and Vexing Cool Hand. Crown of Dichotomy and Vexing Cool Hand both have activated abilities.
Yep.
But in the matchups you're playing them, I would recommend not activating them. Just pretending they're blank.
I can see an argument for playing Crown over Arcanite Skullcap if you're playing against some kind of deck that's not very interactive
Some
and is,
very slow ultimate
and is
control or
also
something.
slow, where you can, set a non-attack action and attack action, so you can get your Morven Skies plus an attack, or...
Yeah. An interesting combo with
Your
this one now
Mortar
is you can put something on top, you can Spellbound Creeps to gain an action point afterwards, so then you can Sonata to draw the 2 cards, or something similar.
Yeah. So
Or
I
one
think
card,
there
rather.
is a place where the active is useful. It's just finding it. It's a bit tricky. I think you're safe, not really worrying too much about it, and just playing the Skullcap.
And then Vexing Cool Hand does have a powerful ability of making 2 rune chants when you break it, but in most of the matchups in the meta at the moment, I don't think it's better than having Grasp the Arknights 2 in 1 block.
Armor's just proving itself time and time again how useful having, ablative health points is,
Yeah. It's like starting the game with an extra sigil in play.
Yeah, pretty much.
And then you've got 1 Gogonian Tome as our only pitchless card.
Yeah.
Card's very good at triggering Viserai, replaces itself. I really like that it is just free. It's something you can play off the top with. Your deck is very good at drawing cards that do something, even if it's just a blue to make a grasp token. There's going to be some interesting situations in this meta where people are both playing Gorgonian Tome. The second one's going to blow you out really hard because it's going to draw 2.
Yeah. It's very close to like a budget, the Runeblade Fable, what's his name?
Grasp. Oh, sorry, Shard.
Shard. It's almost like a budget shard. It's a card that replaces itself and usually creates a rune chant. So, yeah, I think you might want to play Shard over it if you have one, or as
you
well
might want
as
to play both, I think.
yeah,
Yeah.
they're pretty powerful effect.
Right, so that's the equipment and the tome. So we're going to move on to our reads here. So we have 2 Amplify the Arknight, which is a 6 attack for potentially 0.
Yep.
It's a good rate to attack with, especially if you play more advanced guys into it. You're not showing much about your hand and you're threatening a lot of damage.
Yep.
It also blocks 3, which is just nice to have, which is most of your deck. Oh, most of your attack actions, they will block 3.
Yep. It's one of 3 rune chant for cost matters.
Yeah.
The other one that I think is extremely powerful is Rune Flash. So just being able to have 3 rune chants in play and then play a Rune Flash from Arsenal for 4 damage, showing actually nothing from your hand while hitting up 7 damage is extremely powerful. While the Ninth Blades are a little bit more niche in use. They're for your slow combo matchups.
And then you have 3 Consuming Volition sitting there. It's a 4 attack for 1, which is already a good rate.
Yep.
But then if you have dealt or deal arcane damage this turn, it gains, if it hits a hero, they discard a card.
Yep.
So you're making, if you make a token off Grasp and you attack with Volition off 1 blue, you're pushing 1 4 damage, and your opponent has to full block either of those to be able to not discard a card, which generally means they're going to pitch 1 to the rune chant and take 4.
This is one of the cards that I'm least excited about in this deck. I just feel like oftentimes it doesn't play super nicely with larger hands. It can make things awkward for yourself. It's good on off turns where you can go Grasp, Consuming. That can be awkward to block, but at the same time for some of the more popular decks it really isn't. Just Crown of Seeds saying you're 1 arcane and then taking 4 is fine for a lot of these decks, and that 4 damage doesn't matter too much when they're coming back at you for 9 dominate. So
yeah, it's very good versus other aggro decks.
That's where it does shine. It's super good versus
it's also really good at pulling armor blocks. Your opponent's not going to let this one hit if they can avoid it.
It's definitely one of those feast or famine cards. Like, it's either really good in your hand or it's quite awkward.
And then we have 2 red Morvan Skies. We're only playing 2 here because it's a 2 block, which kind of hurts sometimes, especially when you're looking at taking a lot of damage from a lot of these decks. It is a very valuable source of go again, but you have other ways to get go again, whether it's through your Spellbound Creepers or through the other copies of Morvan Skies. The 9th copy of Morvan Skies I don't think is necessary, especially if you start gaming up your hand with multiples.
Yeah, and I mean, unlike a lot of cards that qualify for that, like common or rare 9 of deck slot, this one is quite awkward if you draw it in multiples, unlike a lot of those other cards like Ball Lightning, Seeds, where there's the ban ones, but also Red Warrior's Valor. Those kind of cards, you draw multiple of them and they're still fine. Morvan Skies, if you draw 2 of them and you've only got 1 attack, it's not great.
Yeah, so it's pretty bad. Then we have Meet and Greet, another 1 for 4. This one makes a rune chant on hit and has go again if you deal or have dealt arcane damage.
It's a bit of an all-star, really.
Yeah, it's very, very good. Often it makes your opponent pitch awkwardly to block your arcane damage. Or it just has go again when you haven't revealed it yet. So you have a 4 attack with go again for 1 that makes a rune chant on hit, so it has to be blocked, otherwise it snowballs.
The reason it's considerably stronger than Consuming Volition is that it has effectively 2 on hits. So Consuming Volition has 1 conditional on hit, right? So if you've done damage, arcane damage, which is 1 hit, then you get a potential for the 2nd on hit. Whether this is if they take the arcane, you straight away have go again. If they take the hit, you straight away have a rune chant. So it's it costs 3 cards to stop both of these effects, which is quite expensive.
Yeah, and then you have one of the most powerful cards in the deck, Mordred Tide. Mordred Tide doesn't seem like the most impressive card on paper. If you would make a rune chant token instead, create 1. But when you start playing turns where you play multiple attack actions out, you trigger Viserai multiple times, suddenly you're making 4 or 5 lots of 2 rune chants, which is 10 extra damage on a turn, which is a much higher rate than a lot of cards get. Especially if you go into things like Revel in Runeblood, or use it to combo with Sonata, you're going to be playing more than 5 cards in a turn, and therefore making 2 times that many cards in rune chance.
Yeah, it's just like traditionally it was always looked at as like a combo card
where
for your
play more than
OTK.
Tide, read the runes, and you make 6 rune chance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's kind of on the low end of what we're trying to do with it.
Yeah.
We're trying to use it to accelerate the current turn.
Yeah.
So it's especially powerful with Sonata Arcanix and comboed with turns with a card that we'll get to later. Storm and Gloomveil and Revel and Runeblood are, absolutely incredible with Mordred Tide in play. And it just lets you go incredibly wide with both physical and arcane damage.
Mm-hmm. Then we have 1 Rattlebones as usually a tutor target.
Yeah.
This card's very hard to play.
I don't know how to play it. Explain to me.
Yeah, so it's normally used on a turn where you break Skeletor, and you want to replay something strong. So having a Nightblade of Blood Oath in graveyard and replaying something is very good. It can generate an action point if you dealt arcane damage by playing it as an instant. So you can replay something such as a Amplify for free, or you could just play a Meet and Greet with Go Again, or even something without Go Again, such as a Spellblade Assault to generate rune chance for your second action point.
Yeah, I wouldn't be too worried about just blocking 3 with it though.
Yeah, it's a 3 block, which makes it a pretty low cost card in the deck.
Yeah.
And it is a non-attack, so you can just trigger Viserai Outfit. You can play a turn off a blue, such as Rattlebones, into Consuming Volition again. That'll just let you make a rune chant and attack with Consuming Volition. Won't trigger there, but at least it does some damage. It's one of the harder cards to play and quite hard to work out when you should be searching for it, or what you should do if you draw it.
Yeah.
Then we have 3 Read the Runes, which is one of the weaker cards in the deck now, I think.
Yeah.
It doesn't synergize very well with the aggro plan, which is what we're slanted towards here.
Yeah.
But it is necessary if you want to play OTK.
Yeah.
You have to have the ability to generate lots of rune chants, and this is the best way to do it, which is make 3 off a red.
So what we've settled on is that we play 1 in the main board for that's always there.
Yeah.
So that's for your aggro matchups. And the reason for that is that early game you can draw a Become the Arknight, and then you can create 4 rune chants off playing the Become and searching for the red of the runes on an off turn, especially on like turn 1 or something. We're not playing more than that because they don't have Go Again and they can be awkward.
And there are 2 block, so there is a cost there to not be able to block
but
them.
Yeah, if you're playing for that mid-range OTK strategy, then they're definitely one of the cards you need.
Then we have 3 defense reactions and reduce the rune chant. So this one blocks 4 and costs 1 less for each rune chant you play. You have in play. Costs 1 by base and creates a rune chant. So this card is definitely for OTK.
Yep.
You don't want to be playing this and paying for it.
No.
It's very inefficient. It's just bad simple.
If
that's your plan, you should play some Fate for Scene instead.
Yeah, you don't want to play red blue chant. No.
But generating a rune chant and blocking 4 for free is very, very strong in the OTK side of matchup.
Yeah.
It lets you proactively develop your game plan while also defending.
Yeah.
Which is something no other card does.
Yeah.
And then it's just in aggro you don't want to be playing it because costing 1 is a big downside. And often you'll be ending turns with Rosetta, which will eat your rune chance.
Yeah.
Then we have one of the all-stars of the new set, Revel and Runeblood. This card is very powerful, and I think we only realised how powerful it was until after we played it.
Yeah.
So I was originally on 2 on the list, and then I played 1. I played a turn which was something like Morven Skies, an attack into Revel Rosetta, and I suddenly realised that this card just makes your Rosetta attack for 9.
Yeah.
Which is nuts.
This is, however, I guess coming off that high, like the card is extremely powerful when you can play it.
Yes.
So there's the restrictive element of it has to be like Rosetta active with having played a non-attack action and an attack action this turn.
And it makes 4 rune chance just for the effect.
Yeah. So it's incredibly powerful. However, they can be really awkward.
Yeah.
Especially if you draw multiples and aren't allowed to trigger them. Often I've arsenaled them and they've just got sat there.
Or you play 1 just to set up your Viserai for the rest of the turn.
Yeah.
So it does nothing.
I think 3 in the deck is correct, but I think there are going to be some matchups where you're going to drop down to 2. I think Starvo might be one of those matchups.
I think you just need the damage output in Starvo.
Yeah.
To keep 3
It's definitely something we have to test more, but yeah, let us know how you guys get on along with that. But definitely extremely powerful card.
Yep. Then we have Rune Flash, one of the attacks in the deck. Gets reduced by the amount of rune chance you play.
Yeah.
Base cost of 3. Has Go Again for 4.
Yeah,
Go
kind of
again
went
for
over
4
it.
is a good effect in the deck.
Yeah,
You-
as it is in most decks.
especially when it's cost 0. It's a scar for a scar that's always live, but it blocks 3,
Yeah.
which is pretty nice.
Yeah.
Often you'll be pitching to play it, but it's still not the worst thing in the world, especially when it's letting you trigger the Rosetta and attack with it.
Yeah.
You have 3 red Runeblade Invocation. Has Go Again, enters the card arena with 3 verse counters on it. At the beginning of your action phase, remove a verse counter from it if you do create a rune chant token.
Yeah, so these are pretty.
So it's slow read the runes.
Yeah,
effectively.
basically. It has a couple parts that make it better than read the runes for the aggro strategy. So the first one is to Go Again. You can play it, activate the first part of Viserai's hero ability, and
And half your Rosetta.
yeah, pretty much. So having the Go Again means you can keep going. The other part that's really useful about it is its consistent aura generation throughout turns, which is very useful for your Swarming Gloomveil.
Or your rune flashes, or
Yeah.
having one lying around for a meet and greet, or
Yeah.
consuming volition.
So it itself is an aura, so you turn on that Swarming Gloomveil if you have it in your hand, and then for the next 3 turns, the first ability of your Gloomveil is going to be automatically active.
And you also have that persistent 1 arcane damage per turn every turn.
Yep.
And it doesn't require any card investment on those turns, while
Yep.
also letting you attack with the Rosetta and not having to worry about leaving rune chants sitting around.
Yep. And it also just contributes towards that OTK game plan if you happen to be going that way.
Then we have 2 Runic Reclamation. This tech for playing versus the Rune Blades. Minus Briar, I think. Briar, it's not very good verse.
Yep.
Destroying an embodiment of Earth token is fine, but it's also not something I'm particularly interested in doing.
I wouldn't play versus Briar, I don't
Yeah.
think.
But
But
it's good versus Viserai, it's good versus Chain. Destroying a Soul Shackle or a rune chant is a good effect.
yeah,
But then playing versus Prism is where it really shines.
yeah,
So it's a 7 attack, so it pops all the heralds. But it also just attacks them directly and destroys an aura if it hits. So you get the best of both worlds and not having to choose whether to attack the aura or your opponent. You just put pressure on them while also threatening to destroy an aura.
yeah.
It costing 3 is a downside. Does
Yeah.
block 3 though.
Especially, yeah. I mean, it's just incredible if you get to Morven Skies Runic into,
Anything.
Rosetta, the aura anyway if they do block. So
Yeah.
super good for that.
Then we've got 2 more defense reactions in Sink Below. It's slightly worse than... Oh, it's definitely a lot worse than Reduce to Rune Chant in the OTK side of the deck.
Yeah.
But sometimes you want defense reactions when you're playing an aggro mirror, or you're playing aggro versus something else. You want the 4 blocks available.
Yeah.
Such as versus Warrior, you'd want access
Yeah.
to those.
I guess we'll talk about Unmovable at the same time because these are basically stand-ins for each other.
Yep.
So when you're playing aggro, you're either playing, and most of the time OTK, you're playing either Sink Below or Unmovable, whichever
One
is
going to
better.
be better than the other. So this Unmovable is obviously better versus 1 big attack, which is all the Guardians at the moment, and then the Sink Below is better versus
Yeah.
wide decks, such as your Katsus or your Briars.
Yeah, you might think this is being skimpy with the defense reactions. The answer to that is, well, we're an aggro deck, we like to be aggressive, and also,
Is the obvious downside of
yeah,
on an X card, Sonata Arcanix having defense reactions as a total whiff.
yeah,
So you reveal non-attacks and attacks, and you put an attack in your hand for each non-attack revealed.
yeah. This is also kind of killing Art of Wars in the deck. That's why they're not there.
Yeah, and Razor, all these cute cards that aren't attack or
Yeah,
attack
I
actions.
think
or
you would
non-attack
traditionally want in an aggro deck.
Mhm.
Sonata kills them for this deck, but the card is more than powerful enough to make up for it.
Yeah. So, yeah, the effect on Sonata is reveal the top X plus 3 cards of your deck. The cost is XX, so
Yeah.
twice what you pay. Or half of what you pay, yeah. For each non-attack revealed this way, put an attack action revealed this way into your hand. Then it deals arcane damage numbers equal to the number of cards put in your hand this way. And then you banish it. Has Go Again by default.
Yeah, we just hype it up.
Yeah.
This might be the single most powerful card that you can play in your main deck in the entire game. It's up there with Channel Out Heroic,
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
25, 30 damage turns. It's up there with Lumina.
It's like the biggest enabler in the game,
Yeah,
I think. No other card says if you've set up for it, you may draw 8 cards on a turn. That's
well,
pretty crazy.
I think you're high rolling if you get 8 cards, but
I've been hit by 11 before.
you've been hit by 11.
Yeah.
Wow, that's pretty rough.
Yeah.
But yeah, even just getting 3 cards off it is really incredible.
Yeah. 3 to 5 is about what you're expecting when you sit on a mid to high level number of rune chants, so 12 to 16 rune chants is what you're aiming to.
Yeah, that's for like the OTK strategy.
Yeah, strategy.
Just getting 2 cards.
And so
on
for
the
anyone
aggro
who's
version.
unfamiliar, the way the interaction works is you break Bloodsheath Skeleton, you play Sonata Arcanix, you declare your X cost, which is going to be reduced by the Bloodsheath Skeleton.
Yep.
So if, say, you have 10 rune chants in play,
Yep.
you can declare X is 5, so you play twice 5, which is 10, and then it's reduced by your Bloodsheath Skeleton to 0, so you're going to flip you're going to flip X plus 3 cards, which is 8.
Yeah.
So you have the potential to draw 4 cards there.
Yeah, I guess so an even number divided by 2 is always an odd number. No, that's not completely right at all. Ignore me. Completely ignore me. Completely ignore me. Anyway, what I was trying to say, in a complete nonsense way, was that often you can end up with an odd number of reveals off the top, even if the number of rune chants you have is even.
Yep.
So what you can do is, especially when the number of rune chants is odd, you can pitch a blue, and you can spend 1 resource if your rune chant count is odd to get an extra card.
Yep.
Otherwise, it's 2 resource. So when you have an odd number of rune chants, it's good to
I think what Daniel's trying to say is you always want to be
on an even X
on
count.
an even X count, and you want to be revealing an even number of cards in the end.
Yeah.
So you want to be revealing like 6, 8, 10, not 7 or 9 cards, because then you're effectively missing a card.
Yeah. All right, we did it. That was the worst
Yeah.
explanation possible.
So there's
I'm not a
a bit of thought
mathematician.
into how much resource you put into your Sonata, and this is the engine for the combo of the combo version of the deck, which is OTK.
Yeah.
You're going to be trying to build up that rune chain count, play a big Sonata, use your Spellbound Creepers on another non-attack to generate another action point,
Yeah.
and go really wide and deal your opponent upwards of 30 damage.
Yeah.
It's also good in the aggro version of the deck. Even
Yeah.
when you're playing it for revealing 6 cards, you get 3 in your hand, and that's a draw
Yeah.
3. No other deck gets to play draw 3s for free.
Yeah. It's not even that bad if you just play it flat. It's pretty bad if you whiff, but it's not that likely.
The deck's reasonably well built to hit
Yeah.
on average.
Especially if you're an absolute lad, you cut all the defense reactions.
Yeah, we just block with them beforehand.
Yeah.
So that's the most impressive card of the deck, bar none. Sonata.
Yeah. It's right in the middle.
And then we have Spellblade Assault, which is a red attack, costs 2, attacks for 4, blocks 3, and creates 2 rune chants.
This card just does everything.
This card's great. You play Morvian Skies, you pitch a blue, you play Spellblade Assault, you attack for 4 with Go again,
Yeah.
and you make 3 rune chants, and you Rosetta them for 7 damage.
Yeah.
That's pretty much the ideal turn for the deck.
Yeah.
So it's an enabler in that it generates rune chants,
Mhm.
it keeps pressure on your opponent, and it also lets you swing tempo by generating these rune chants or set up for next turn if you just
Yeah.
end your turn on it.
Especially after your Sonata turn when your opponent's rather low, being able to put forward a breakpoint card at 4 damage, with usually 1 or 2 arcane, while also holding back some arcane is incredibly powerful for that Sonata, for that Rosetta swing.
Yep, I think the fact that it makes 2 rune chants, or 3 if you played an on-take before it,
Yeah.
incredibly powerful. It lets you set up for the next turn,
Yeah.
and you can play a bit of a longer game that way.
Yeah, I guess it's quite easy to actually underestimate the value of the rune chants in your deck. But when you after you play the deck a few times, you're like, holy crap! I'm actually doing 10 to 15 damage every game with rune chants.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
I think that's probably on the low end as well.
Yeah, it's a lot of damage. So yeah, it adds up.
And then we have Spellblade Strike, which is Spellblade Assault's baby brother. It costs 1, attacks for 4, creates 1 rune chant. It's a very similar reason to playing Spellblade Assault.
Yeah.
It's an attack that is also an enabler, I think, for a lot of the same reasons that Assault is.
This is probably one of the flexible cards that you could cut or change or do something else. But we're playing a more aggressive version, so
Yep.
it's basically good. It still has those 2 triggers for Mordred Tide.
Yep.
On and on.
And then Swarming Gloomveil is one of the new Majestics from Everfest. It has a bunch of text, so I'm not going to read it all out. But it does more things the more rune chants you've made this, or more auras you've made this turn.
A lot of the time, it's just good scar for scar.
Exactly. So a lot of the time it attacks for 4 with Go again, which is fantastic. It triggers off rune chants made by itself, so you only need to wait one rune chant and then attack with it after playing it on attack to trigger both effects, and then it's scar for scar. And sometimes you get to trigger the third one, which is very threatening in that if it hits, your opponent can't prevent arcane damage.
And you've got a Rosetta following.
You've got a Rosetta following, which they can't block half of, or you've got a Revel and Runeblood coming, which will then be 5 unblockable damage.
Yeah.
That's just a Voltic Bolt. Kano wishes it had that rate.
Yeah. So like, this is probably the best 0 cost for attack go again in the game. Like I can't think of a better one.
No other for attack go again 0 cost has
creates an arcane damage and also threatens unblockable damage.
Yeah.
Like it's up there.
Mm-hmm. And then we have our last two defense reactions we've talked about briefly, 2 unmovable.
Yeah.
So it's only in there for the big attacks.
Yeah.
Guardian Warrior.
Yeah, I guess now that we're getting through the pitch cards, we can kind of go through things a bit faster. So Morvrim Skies, we've already kind of talked about it. This is just
At least you
pitch.
go wide.
Yeah.
Threatens an on-hit on every attack you have.
Yep.
And triggers your Viserai to start the turn.
Yep. So just playing the yellows and blues because it's a good effect. Like it's not limited by like the cost of the attack action, like a lot of these go again effects on non-attack actions are. So it gives even the blue one. Can give Runic Reclamation go again.
Mm-hmm.
So having a higher pitch value means they're better when you do draw them in multiples.
Mm-hmm. And you've got 2 Nightblade of the Blood Oath in yellow, which is one of the more awkward cards in the deck a lot of the time.
Yep.
But is the single best thing to draw on your Sonata combo turns. That's
It's
why
just
there's 2 in the
huge.
deck. Because you attack for 9 straight away,
Yep.
and it's free. Because
Yep.
you've broken Skeletor.
Yep.
There's no other attack in the game which competes with that rate. And you're attacking with a bunch of rune chants, so it just pushes the most damage possible.
Yep.
Sometimes we get to play it in the aggro version, so you keep 1 in when you sideboard for that.
Yeah,
But a
I
lot
think
of
you
the
could
time-
also go down to 0, depending on how you
could.
build.
But I think it's also valuable when you're playing cards like Rattlebones.
Yeah.
Having the ability to just set up for that if you happen to draw that way is
Yeah.
valuable, because it doesn't cost you much to have it in your graveyard.
I think like one cost, just having one in the deck is good insurance, because even if you go to play the aggro version, that might not always be the way the game plans out. Sometimes dashes can dissolution sphere you and you end up setting more enchants than you anticipated, or that Katsu was actually playing control,
Or the first 3 hands you just draw Mordred Tide, Read the Runes
yeah,
into Mordred Tide, Runeblood Incantation,
yeah,
something like that.
you might be up against Starvo and they went for like Earthlore, control deck shenanigans, expecting you to have your aggro deck stuff. So it's good insurance for rogue decks and decks where you're not sure how they're going to sideboard. So yeah.
And I think another reason for keeping in a lot of these one-offs is the next card, Become the Arcanix.
Yeah.
So this is the best blue in the deck. It's pretty close to one of the better cards in the deck because it can be anything.
Yeah.
You can tutor whatever card you want out of your deck. A lot of the time it's going to be the one of Read the Runes in the aggro version, or it's going to be a Swarming Gloomveil to attack for free with Go Again, a Morvrim Skies to enable your hand to go wider.
These are what I get most of the time.
Yeah, Mordred Tide's fantastic. Sonata is obviously a massive enabler, so having extra copies of Sonata in your deck is fantastic. Or you could find like a Revel and Runeblood to really put that arcane damage on.
And it's one of the best cards to put in your arsenal when you're playing, because it's like
It's very flexible.
it functions as Schrodinger's non-attack action.
Yeah.
It's because when you draw the Mordred Tide, you want the Sonata Arcanix. When you draw the Sonata Arcanix, you want the Mordred Tide, and this is both simultaneously, basically. So no matter which one you get to first, you have the second piece.
Yeah.
That's why it's so powerful.
Yeah. And then we have Dread Triptych, just a solid attack. Very strong with Mordred Tide.
Yeah.
If all the modes go off, you make 8 rune chants on a Mordred Tide turn, which is pretty crazy.
True.
Yeah.
Gosh.
Viserai 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
So.
Also, just a blue that attacks for 4 is actually pretty decent for closing out a game. Like,
And you play a decent amount of blue, so pitching 1 card for it is not a bad rate. You have, we've talked about Morvrim Skies, you have Oath the Arknight. A lot of the time it's just a blue that blocks 3, and you'll play it to generate 1 rune chant in the OTK version.
Yep.
That's pretty much the whole
it's
card.
not a very exciting card, but it's all
It's a blue that
reliable.
generates rune chants,
Yep.
and it blocks 3, so it's good.
Yeah.
You have Shrill of Scaleform, which is a new card. It's a blue that can attack for 5, which is kind of exciting.
Yeah.
Off 2 resource. A lot of the time, if your game goes late and you haven't found a good Skeletor turn, you can just break the Skeletor to attack with Shrill for free.
Yeah.
And then you're just threatening 5 damage, which
Yeah,
is
yeah.
really nice.
Yeah, that was something we were talking about before the game, but also it just combos very nicely with Rim Blood Incantation
True.
if you have that in the late game.
Mhm.
So yeah, this is a...
It's a blue that acts as a good finisher on go wide turns. So
Yeah.
you've got a glut of blues in your hand,
Yeah.
and you've gone wide for like 1 or 2 attacks. You end with a 5 attack that generates a rune chant to set up for next turn. It's very nice.
Yeah, it's one more physical damage than the Rosetta, and quite often threatening that one extra damage can be really important. There's a big difference between taking a card out of someone's hand versus them going to one and keeping 4 cards to blow you out.
And you keep the rune charm for next turn, which is quite nice
Yeah.
in the deck.
Exactly.
And you have Spellblade Assault, which is a solid blue because it makes 2 rune chance. It's good for the same reasons the red is good. It doesn't hit that for power break point, but it's a resource card as well. So
It rarely gets played.
yeah.
But, yeah. And then we've got the worst card in the deck.
Whisper of the Oracle. For those keeping track, it might be the only non-rune blade, non-defense reaction card in the deck.
Yep.
But that's because we're looking for blues.
Get screwed.
Oh. We're looking for blues with Go Again on a non-attack, which is kind of hard to come by, especially free ones.
Yeah.
So this just happens to be the best card for the slot. I think it will get replaced eventually when they print more cards.
It's definitely like waiting for a better card to come along.
But it's not terrible. You can generate an action point at instant speed off your Spellbound Creepers.
Yeah.
That's why we need the non-attack with Go Again.
Is Captain's Call 0?
A box
cost?
2, which makes it worse.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you wanted to be a bit more aggressive, then maybe Captain's Call. But yeah, it's a pretty bad card. But in that kind of niche, there are only bad cards to pick.
Yes. So I think that's the deck. So I think we'll take cards out and show the main board here.
Yep.
And just very quickly, you can get an idea of where to start with for the base of the deck.
One of those.
What else are we cutting?
Some amount of Consuming Volition.
You normally cut one. Oh, you cut all 3 in those. Okay, that's right. And you don't like Rattlebones, do you?
I don't physically own one, so my decision is
This
easy.
is my Rattlebones. Cool. So I think that is our main deck.
Pretty much. I don't think a whole lot
Cutting
changes
all
here.
21 sounds about right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is mostly there are a few changes that you can do for comfort. I guess you don't have to play the ninth blade.
Yep. And often I'll
I
find
think
myself.
the Spellblade strikes, the amplifiers can be changed for something if a mediocre attack is not really what you're looking for.
I like having access to the 1 Rattlebones in most matchups, so I don't cut it at all.
Okay.
But there's a lot of flexibility to the main board.
Yep.
You just need to know why you're putting cards in and when they're bad. So you should play some games with the deck before you work out sideboard changes.
Yeah.
But you want a starting point. So start with this list, give it some tries, add in your OTK cards, your aggro cards, the obvious ones, and go to 60 because the deck feels much, much better at 60.
Yeah.
than it does.
Always play 60 cards in this deck. There's never a reason to play more than 60 cards.
Yeah. You're not going to fatigue in any matchups. If you do, you've lost.
Yeah.
Because your card quality... you draw through your deck much faster, so your opponent is going to have more cards in your deck.
Yeah. So, if you're playing OTK and you're playing more than 60 cards, and you're making your deck less consistent, less powerful. If you're playing... and it's the exact same for playing aggro. So you just never want to do it.
Yeah.
As the game goes along, there is less and less reason to play more than 60 cards.
Yeah. No one's playing these 67 card Rhino lists that aim to fatigue your dash opponents. Or...
No. It's just not what happens in modern day Flesh and Blood, really.
There's just too much damage available in the game.
Yep.
You want your deck to be consistently able to do what it wants to do.
Yeah. Blocking 3 versus your opponent's 4 attack go agains is just...
miserable.
It's not where the game is at
Yeah.
anymore. So yeah, this is what the deck looks like. Give it a go. Let us know how you do.
Yep.
It's extremely powerful. You will find yourself just running over people and saying, "Gosh, I'm sorry."
Yeah. You'll play a turn that's like Mordred Tide into Sonata,
You will do 20 damage
Into
plus in a
Glooming.
single turn in this deck. Easy.
Rune Flash. Yeah. You have turns like these where you just have extra resource. You get to play an attack, you get to make something at instant speed. You
Yep.
get to Rosetta at the end, and you're just dealing 30 damage.
Yeah. The deck has so much synergistic elements between its cards that it feels like you're putting together a puzzle every single turn, and it's incredibly powerful.
But yeah, I'd like to see if anyone takes this list to ProQuest, please let us know how it goes.
Yep.
With the first ProQuest coming up soon, or maybe out by the time we release this video.
Yep.
Seeing as they are, as of now, this weekend, which is 2 days away.
Yep.
So we'll see how Runeblade performs in those ProQuests, and hopefully well, Viserai in particular,
Yeah.
has a good showing. I
Alright.
think the deck is very underrated from what we've seen recently with
Yeah.
all the Starvu, but I'd like to see more of it.
Yeah. Thanks for watching, guys. Let us know how he did, and we'll see you for the next one.